Hey guys, happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Bearded Talk podcast. I want to get right into the nitty gritty. So I have two quick announcements. One, I'm hosting a free workshop in the Bearded Talk Facebook group on how to generate more wedding leads. So last year, Mesa Photography got about 400 wedding leads. And then this year, we're already on pace to go over 500 leads, which is really cool. It just inspires a lot of confidence in your work rather than having to check email every waking second and just hoping for somebody to give you money, right? So March 11th at 7 p.m., come hang out in the Facebook group. This is going to be the workshop that changes your business forever, right? So like if you're getting leads and getting attention, then that will help generate income everywhere. So definitely March 11th, 7 p.m., come hang out in the Facebook group. The link is in the show notes, or you can go to facebook.com/groups/thebeardedtalk. Come hang out. Come say hi. Come in early. Come in right now. And we would love to have you and help you in your business. Number two is that we have some really, really cool partners who are going to start sponsoring the episodes. We've done the conversations and we've worked it all out. And I'm just so excited and thankful that they have decided to partner with the Bearded Talk. I think we're the only podcast that is advertising with these two people, or these two brands. It's going to be really, really cool to see how they impact your lives, because they're things that I use every day and I can truly recommend. So I think that's really, really cool. I wanted things that I wasn't like unsure of or couldn't really put my foot down and stand for. So you'll hear those throughout the episode. We're experimenting with that, and it's going to be really, really cool. And so I want to talk about our guest today. Her name is Ami Vitale. She's a photographer for National Geographic. She's covered all kinds of things, but her most famous thing, I feel like, and the thing that I found with her is the Secret Lives of Pandas book that she made. And so she literally lived with and dressed like pandas in China and in Asia to document their truest selves and their truest lives. And it's just been so cool. She's done a bunch of other really cool stuff. And we're just going to dive into the nitty gritty of what it looks like to be a Nat Geo photographer. We waited so long to have Ami on, and she's just traveling to different countries and craziness. And we finally got her for a few minutes, and she was able to hop on the Zoom call, and we made it happen. So without any further ado, here's Ami Vitale. Ami, how's it going?
Hey, Adam. Great. How are you?
Good. It is so good to talk to you. I know we had a lot of fun just getting you on, and you're traveling. And where are you right now?
I'm actually miraculously at home in Montana for a few days, and then I'm kind of gone until November.
Oh my! Do you have to pay? Do you Airbnb your place, or do you have a property management or a cat or anything to keep your residency?
I have house plants. Those are the ones that I can barely keep alive. But yes, I have people that come in and look after my place.
Oh, that's awesome! I'll send you a photo. We just got plants in the studio, and I'm not a plant dad, but I'm slowly becoming one. So we're on the same wavelength.
Aren't they amazing? They are amazing,
dude. It's so cool, yeah. And it just I know there's a certain percentage of trees, right, to help offset carbon emissions and all that stuff. But it feels nice to have some plants wherever you're living and spending time. It just, I don't know, something about it. I never knew. I'm opening my eyes up to the world of plants.
Yeah. But, Adam, where do you live in a city, or are you in a where are you?
Yeah, we live in Washington, D.C. Yeah, so it's we get our fair share of city life, and we're in the studio now too. So outside, there's lots of noise and different air quality situations happening. So not as beautiful as Montana, at least most of the parts of Montana I've been to.
No, it's beautiful in its own way, for sure.
Exactly. So I want to know a little bit more about you for the four people that don't know who you are, obviously. You've traveled to more than 100 countries, which is a pretty easy fact to find. But I want to know, what country other than the U.S. have you been to, and do you have a favorite country?
Oh, no, that's kind of like asking if I have a favorite child. The world, I think, is incredibly beautiful and diverse, and every, I tend to spend quite a bit of time in each place. So some of those, 100, it was just a quick, breezy trip where
Sure.
I had to, not go too deep into it, but sort of my hallmark. The thing I think that I pride myself on is just spending years and years on many of the stories and going and living in places for quite a long time. So I don't have one place. They've all made their mark and kind of shaped who I am from all of these experiences. But yeah, right now I'm actually working a lot in northern Kenya. And I find that the more time I spend in a place, the deeper the relationships get and the
Mm.
more depth in my understanding of why things are the way they are. It comes from really time and relationships in all of these places. And so, yeah, right now I would say Kenya is has got a hold and a lock on my heart for the moment.
I love that. I love that. I haven't been to Kenya yet. I've been to Ethiopia and some other parts of East Africa, but I have lots of friends here in the district who work on like women's rights issues and all kinds of stuff in Kenya. So that's really, really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit of your story. Like, everybody knows you're a photographer, right? And I would love if you could clarify for fun. I think you're officially the first Nat Geo photographer we've had on. What does that mean? Does that mean the same thing it used to 10 years ago? And how did you get your start? Did you grow up in Montana? What was your kind of path to where you are now?
Oh, dun-dun-dun-dun.
Yeah,
I
that
always
was a
feel
loaded question.
obliged to sing the snappy tune they've got. Well, I've been a photographer with them since 2004, and I have to say that it has definitely changed quite a bit since I began. And I did not grow up in Montana. I found Montana about 10 years ago. I found, or Nat Geo found me actually when I was living in India. And I think that's the number one question. I get a lot of letters from aspiring photographers wanting to be a National Geographic photographer. And I guess my bit of advice would be, that if you're going to, don't a lot of people think that it's about traveling and kind of taking pictures of the exotic. And I would say that that is the exact opposite. It's not about the exotic. It's about going deep into a particular story, work on it for a long time. And when I say a long time, I would say the thing that a lot of National Geographic photographers have in common is that they know their subject so better than anybody, so deeply, and it's much more than a story for them. It's kind of their life. And I would say that's the one thing that many of us have in common. We found something, and it may be a story that everybody thinks they know about, but they kind of have gone really deeply into it and surprised people. And that would be my bit of advice, is like find something in your backyard. You don't have to travel, to 10,000 miles away and go deep into a subject that is far away from your home. I would say the exact opposite. Take something that only you know well, and spend a lot of time on that story.
Do you seem like I heard a photographer once say that a lot of National Geographic photographers and even just wildlife photographers and press photographers, kind of on the side of things, is just this like natural curiosity, right? And I think you mentioned that as you've gotten to travel, you've learned more and more about the way, quote unquote, like the way things are. So it's like you're like feeding that curiosity, I guess.
Oh, 100%. You need a lot of curiosity. And I mean, I think that there's so many different kinds of photographers. So it's very, I think the one, some people are very good technically and just, really a technical artist in the way they look at the world, and others, look at it from, I don't know, like the technical would not be the thing, that they look at it from a kind of sociological, anthropological way. But I think the one thing that unites us is definitely a hunger, a curiosity for the world, and trying to understand and I think create understanding through the visual storytelling.
Mm. Now, how does I want to ask just for fun? We kind of alluded to this earlier. For folks who don't know, or when you meet somebody who's maybe not in the even photography scene, let alone being a business person or having to be a business person in kind of that field and working for National Geographic and other clients. Explain it to us as if we know nothing about the photography industry. Like, how does that factually work? So, and I'll give an example, so like when you were in Madagascar, was that a certain organization that said, hey, Amy, we need you to come out? Was that National Geographic? And like the editor is pitching a story to you. And then as practical as you want to get, just not for the sake of, politics or anything like that, but, are you covering most of your travel? Are some of these projects passion projects and you try to pick up something along the way? Do you get what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
I do, Adam. It's such a good question. And I think that no assignment is ever the same. But the one thing I would like to kind of let people know is that for most of us, we've been working on these stories, saving up our money. Some of us have, there's a National Geographic photographer that has a lawn mowing business on the side. And Joel Sartor and I were we saw him at our annual meeting. We're like, don't give up lawn mowing business, because the truth is, a lot of the work is self-funded in the beginning. And by the time we catch the interest of the editors at such a prestigious publication, we've already done years of work on this story, or kind of invested significantly in that. And so, the very first, nobody's going to kind of understand what you're seeing. You almost have to show it to them. And for example, even with a story like the Pandas that I did for them, I had already worked for a long time on that story before they agreed to run it and invest in it themselves. So it's not like it's this golden parachute that's going to save you. You have to do a lot of work yourself first. And I think that, for example, actually, if people want, they can go to my website, because I've listed a whole resource page where I give, tons of grants and opportunities that photographers and storytellers can apply to get that initial seed funding. And many of the stories, honestly, like my first stories, I worked overtime. I would work these crazy shifts when I was an editor of 18 hours a day, and I saved up all my money to then go invest in my first story. And nothing's really changed since I first started till today. Most of the money I make goes right back into the stories that I care about. And then I view National Geographic is such an amazing privilege to work for them, but I really view them as this platform to reach an audience. But it's not like you're going to for most of us, we have to be very creative in how we earn a living. And so in today's world, it's just not enough to be a photographer for most of us. I mean, there's a few very lucky people, but I have to do a lot of other things to earn a living, from speaking to writing to teaching to making films to, really dancing. Just kidding. No, just doing everything that I can to, to make a living, to do what I love and feel passionate about.
Sure. No, absolutely. Hey guys, just wanted to hop in here and thank our first sponsor. Have you guys ever dropped the ball on a client? Maybe missed an email or forgot to schedule a meeting? It's embarrassing, right? Not only does it make you look unprofessional, but it also makes you look less valuable. Well, that's where Tave comes in. Tave is one of the most advanced and customizable platforms for managing your photography business. It's what I use literally every day, and I've been a client of theirs for years. It's changed my life, guys. Before Tave, I felt like I had to manage everything. My own calendar, invoices, quotes, proposals, emails, scheduling, everything. It was awful. But now I'm managing over 60 clients a year. And even as we grow our team, Tave is making it super easy to make sure every client gets the luxury experience that we want them to have. One of my favorite features of Tave is the booking reports. So Tave tracks all your inquiries, how they found you, and of course, how much you got paid, right? This helps me look at the booking trends to predict when bookings will be slower, when they'll ramp up, when's the average booking rate, and it helps us set our goals to help raise our prices. I've used Tave for years now, and it's changed my business forever. Whether you're a wedding photographer or videographer, headshot guru, or boudoir master, Tave can work for you guys. The guys over at Tave have hooked it up for you all. Instead of their normal 30-day free trial, you guys get an extra 30 days. So the Bearded Dog listeners get 60 days total to try it out, set it up, and get your life back. So head over to thebeardedhog.com/Tave to sign up and get your extra special 60-day free trial today. That's thebeardedhog.com/TAVE to try out Tave and get your life back today. Seriously, guys, do it. Thanks to Tave for sponsoring our show. Now back to the episode.
Now, if you don't mind, when Nat Geo does say, hey, we want to run this story, or we want to invest in that story, without saying any numbers or anything like that, or even if you want to use a different organization, how does that work practically? Does it say, hey, here's the assignment, we need you to go to this country, and here's, we'll pay you half up front, half later? Just practically, how does it work? And, what's your deliverable look like?
It's very different for every single job, but I would say for the first step is you have to create a budget. And that means you've got to go in and do the work and estimate how much everything's going to cost. How much is your flight? How much is your transportation there? Your, food, everything, visas. And it gets tricky because there's, sometimes you may underestimate things. And then sometimes organizations will give you just a flat fee or almost like a grant. And very often that doesn't cover everything. So you just, you have to, it's changing very, very quickly. Like in the last 10 years, it used to be very different where, a magazine might come in and pay for everything, and today it's getting much more like the flat fee scenario where organizations are just offering you a flat fee, and you just have to be creative and make it all work.
Sure.
And so, and today we're often asked to find people that will co-fund the projects. And so, not only are we just the photographer, we actually have to find funding today in many cases. So the landscape changing quickly. And I think that, it doesn't, I actually think the need for great storytelling has not gone away, but we just have to be a lot more creative than we did in the past, how we're going to make it all work.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense. It's just, you're not allowed to, like you said, to just be a photographer anymore. You kind of have to be good at pitching, essentially, and that's so fascinating too. You had to make your own budget and kind of go to, Nat Geo or an organization. And then other organizations are kind of on the flat fee side of things where they might say, hey, we're going to give you, X amount of dollars, but you have to manage your own expenses. So where I feel like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I might be like, hey, we have a travel agent in-house. We're going to book this for you. Whereas now it's, you're kind of on your own, which might be for some people really exciting. But after a while, you're kind of like, oh, I think I'm going to fly coach instead of, business class for the 17-hour flight.
Well, frankly, it's not allowed to fly business class. Those days are long gone. And, I think it's so funny. You ask why it was so hard to arrange a call. It's like, I'm not only just taking pictures and editing and, and filmmaking and doing all of these things. Like, I have to plan the logistics. If I have a team, I'm planning their logistics, and I'm much, in a lot of cases, I'm self-producing. I'm kind of a one-woman show, and it gets pretty exhausting. Now, this is very different from the commercial market. I do, I've had to I used to do only documentary work, and frankly, it's just not sustainable anymore. So I do commercial jobs to fund the documentary work. And that's a little bit different. The budgets are very different when you're doing commercial work. Your team can be a little bit bigger, and you have a lot more support on commercial jobs. But for the doc world, it is pretty threadbare, and you just have to be able to learn it all and do it all. And it makes it, fairly, it's exhausting. I mean, I'm not complaining and I'm so grateful, but you really have to make it realistic for people. You have to learn how to produce, to shoot, to edit, to be a good storyteller, and then to go out and really be the voice, to be able to speak about your projects, to get eyeballs on those projects, and all of this is expected of us. Social media matters now. That's something that we never had to think about before. And look,
Sure.
I was the shyest, gawkiest, most introverted person when I began, and we are now forced to kind of get out there and speak about things. And in some ways, I'm grateful for it, because it's really forced me out of my shell and made me into a very different person than I was when I began. And some of it's actually good. I would cringe at the thought of having to do all the things I have to do today, but it's given me a lot more confidence and made me realize that that it's not about me. This is not about my career, but I'm actually out there being the voice for some of the causes that I care about, and it actually makes it a little bit easier.
Totally. No, I mean, it's super important, but I can see how that can be stressful, and, you're taking on a lot, and kind of like you said, like this, I think the beauty of what you get to do, right, and hopefully most folks in your position, is that you're chasing the passion, and hopefully your bills get covered, so rather than your first priority being bills getting covered, and maybe you'll make time for your passion, right? And so like it's a big thing in the entrepreneurial space to say, like, I work 80 so that I don't have to work 40, for somebody else, essentially. And I easily see you doing that, because I know you do a ton of stuff that we'll get to as well, like the ripple effect and a lot of your speaking and Nikon ambassador kind of stuff. So I know you do a lot for sure.
Oh, I think everybody does. I mean, it's kind of a busy world we live in, and yeah, it's kind of a transitional moment, I feel, where things are just really changing quickly. And I think the other thing I'd love to throw out there is just to photographers and storytellers is to kind of be really careful about the choices they make. And we all have to kind of do commercial projects, and in a way, it's like, okay, just sort of figure out who those projects are going to be with, and that it's important to kind of pick brands that have the same values that you do.
Totally. No, that makes perfect sense. Now, when years ago, did you go to school for photography, or did you grow up around cameras? And what was that kind of process like for you? When did you fall in love with photography or storytelling?
No, I actually was studying international relations. I wanted to be a kind of a diplomat and work for the Foreign Service. And then I realized pretty quickly that no, I did not want to do that. I wanted to be a storyteller, and I didn't realize that there was actually the possibility to do what I do. And then I took one photography class, and I had the most incredible teacher, Rich Beckman, who showed me all of these opportunities. He pushed me to apply for grants when I was still in university. And he kind of opened up this world. And then that set me off on this trajectory of becoming a journalist. And I worked for first the Raleigh News and Observer, and then I worked for USA Today, and then I worked for Associated Press. And then I kind of became an editor and saw everything from the perspective of working in New York and Washington, D.C. as an editor. And I did that for about 4 years, and until I realized that I really wanted to be a foreign correspondent. And then I finally built up the courage, quit that job, and moved to the Czech Republic to work for a small business paper, and kind of set off on this path of becoming a foreign correspondent.
Wow. How long did you live in the Czech Republic?
For 3 years. And the
Oh my
first year I
goodness.
worked for the Prague Business Journal, and then the war in the Balkans was unfolding in my backyard. And something inside of me knew that I had to go. And I quit my job after about a year and went from being this relatively amateur photographer to all of a sudden being a war correspondent. And I kind of set down this path then for the next almost decade, covering conflicts all over the planet.
Wow. And when was the last time that you kind of covered content like that, or conflicts like you mentioned? And I know a lot of the nature stuff has a lot of conflicts involved, but I would say maybe those are micro, and maybe the like stuff like the Balkans were the macro, if you will. When was the last time you covered stuff like that?
Probably, I lived in Kashmir, and India and Pakistan continue to fight over this very contentious conflict since 1947.
Yeah.
And it's very brutal. It's still going on today. And I covered that for quite a long time. And I think the last time I was there was in 2011.
Okay. So yeah, you're just doing it all. I love it. What I think everybody wants to know, and you probably have gotten this question a lot, and I wanted to save it until we did some serious talk, and now I want to have a little bit of fun, but you've dressed up like a panda in order to photograph pandas. Is that correct?
I have, and it was not a cute panda costume, people. This was like a creepy, I could have robbed banks in it. It was really creepy, but hilarious. I mean, I spent 3 years covering, kind of making multiple trips to China to kind of tell this really miraculous story of what they're doing to save not just the panda, but a whole host of other species that live in those forests with the panda. But part of that story was that pandas forget how to be wild, really, after a generation in captivity. And so they literally needed to be taught how to be sent back to the wild, how to be wild. And the head of the panda program realized that one of the main things that they should focus on was that they should never be comfortable with human beings, meaning all of us, those that were, the scientists, the panda keepers, and even myself that was documenting their story, had to dress up in this panda costume, which was actually scented with panda urine, because they go by sight. Smell, not sight. So that costume was scented with panda urine, and every day I would look around, and there were about 20 of us that would be interacting with the pandas in some capacity or documenting them. And so we'd have to really, really kind of stay away and not make them comfortable around human beings.
Right. No, it's fascinating. I have the book, your book that where you tell a little bit more in depth of what's going on, and the story is fascinating. And then obviously you see these photos, and it's kind of a juxtaposition between adorable. Yeah, these adorable pandas. One, my favorite one actually is like the little cub who's in the scale and just having a good time. And then you see these people, and if you didn't know who Amy was, if you didn't know the story, you're like, why are these people just dressed in panda costumes? And I think some people would be, like, oh, that kind of makes sense, but at the same time, it just shows the level of devotion and, again, that curiosity, that devotion to your subject, like you said, that you and other Nat Geo photographers have. That, I think if in the commercial world, if they said, hey, we need you to dress up in a certain way, and, obviously there are times when you might have to wear a suit or a tie or a dress or whatever, but if they said, hey, you need to wear a panda costume and kind of look silly, you'd be like, no thanks, let's turn it down. But for you, it's for devotion to the cause, and I think that's really cool.
Oh, it was actually wonderful, I have to say. The whole story was so, there was this kind of surreal, it was surreal. And wait, are you going to edit any of this, by the way?
I can if you want.
But okay, well, it will impact what I'm going to say. No. The truth is, the panda story was kind of this. It was an amazing thing because, I realized there's so many stories like that where there's this. The panda bear must be the most known, recognizable creature on the planet. Who doesn't know what a panda looks like? Like, we've all seen pictures of them. They may be the most photographed animal. And we've almost turned them into this clownish cartoon character. But once I started researching and digging into the story and learning about them, it kind of blew my mind, because I just realized that actually most people don't understand this creature and how elusive they are, and they're not anything like what we've turned them into. And I think that's the magic of any story, and as storytellers, it's like, find the stories that we think we know about and turn it on its head, surprise people. That's the real art and craft of storytelling, I think. And one thing about that story, it was like, the pandas have been on this planet for millions of years, and they were only discovered to human beings. Really, the first one was discovered at the end of the 1800s, and the first one was captured alive only in 1936.
Wow.
And it's just like, oh my God, because they're everywhere. They're ubiquitous. We may all have, little stuffed animals or, cartoons, all of that. And I just feel like that's the thing, like, dig into any story and it's going to surprise you.
Right. No, I remember when I moved to DC, there, we have a zoo, right? Like most big cities or whatever. And, the most famous part of that zoo was the two pandas that they had. And then I think DC broke the internet when the mom had a baby. I didn't think its name was Bao Bao. And it was like, so many people came to see this panda cub. And I actually got an opportunity to shoot for the zoo. And it was crazy just how popular and recognizable. And then, I'm pretty sure we photographed an event where like foreign officials from China and the US were like shaking hands over this agreement. And I'm not sure the particulars of like right and wrong there, but the idea that the pandas were so precious to the world was very evident, and people like them, right? Like they seem very cuddly. I'm still on this kind of side of things where it's like, hey, it's still a bear,
Oh, Adam, they are still bears with teeth and claws, and I think it's kind of, I'm sort of on the fence about all of this, because it's true. They're really an ambassador, I think, for all of not just politically bringing the countries together, which that's the panda. Actually, in the beginning, China used to gift them to countries as a political used politically to bring countries together. That is not the case anymore, but they are still very important as this kind of icon for China. They're and I think today they can be an ambassador, not just politically, but for all species. And that's the thing. It's like, wow, okay, people love the world is sort of obsessed with the panda bear. And I feel like that's amazing. But on the other hand, let's let them become, a way to bring people in to care about all species. They're super charismatic and adorable. And honestly, I died of cuteness overload like 5 million times while covering that story. Their cuteness is undeniable. But I realized that we've got to care about all creatures, the less charismatic ones, because the bigger story is like, okay, what are we doing to all of wildlife and all of nature on this planet? Not to bring it into this very serious tone, but it's true. I think that's, the panda kind of got me on this path of kind of thinking about how to tell stories to make people care about the natural world. And I learned a lot from what China is doing to kind of get this species protected. There were a lot of lessons I learned from the Chinese. And I think now the secret is like, okay, so what do we do, for all species all over the planet now?
Hey guys, just want to take a quick break and thank our other partner. During wedding season, I'm always thinking about how I can expand and generate more revenue for my business. It's something we all need to be thinking about. Most of the time, I'll come up with ideas and they usually seem like more of a hassle than a help. And so it usually just doesn't happen, right? Like we've all been to that workshop where they recommend IPS and you go, that doesn't feel like me. And then we don't do it, right? Until Photo Booth Supply Co. Photo Booth Supply Co. is an incredible photo booth company based in California whose sole goal is to help us make more money. Guys, I have their new photo booth. It's called the Salsa. And seriously, it's leveled up my business for sure. I chose the Salsa because it feels more authentic to my brand. So like there's no printers or paper or breaking your back carrying a bunch of heavy stuff. I work alone a lot. And so I wanted something that I could bring myself and set up quickly and it would be easy for me to get rolling. Salsa is a digital-only selfie style, which I love selfies, right? Eco-friendly photo booth. It's all in one. You don't even need to hire an attendant, guys. It literally takes 60 seconds to set up and run the photo booth. It runs itself. It's insane. It's light enough that anybody can add it to their trunk or in the back of an Uber if you're in the city. I even know plenty of photographers who bring it with them to destination weddings. How crazy is that? Like my favorite part of Salsa is that even at a wedding or event, while it's generating revenue, right? It's also doing marketing for me. So every photo, boomerang, or GIF or video that it takes, it asks for the person's phone number or email to send the photo. So I'm collecting emails and texts literally as we're shooting the event. And then I send them the pre-made text and emails that Photo Booth Supply Co. has made for me. Because again, I don't have time to craft a text from a photo booth, right? So they made it for me. And it literally generates leads for me during weddings from engaged couples. It's so cool. So I'll leave a wedding and I'll have 1, more Instagram followers. 2, I'll have leads in my email. It's insane. They even have payment plans so you don't have to save up to start making more money. You can just start today. So guys, head over to thebeardedtalk.com/booth to get your Salsa photo booth and start making more money on every wedding or gig today. That's thebeardedtalk.com/BOOTH. Huge thanks to Photo Booth Supply Co. for sponsoring our show and the Salsa booth. Now back to the episode.
No, absolutely. That makes sense. It's one of those things where it's like a rising tide lifts all boats, and it's one of those situations where it's like, hey, if the panda is kind of the public facing initiative animal, if you will, to help bring that cause to light, and then people. That's what I think too. I know a lot of nature photographers who shoot landscapes, and ideally, between them and companies like Patagonia and those kinds of things is they're just helping people hopefully fall in love with the outdoors, and the things you love you steward most of the time. And but if you don't know about it and you don't love it and you don't steward it, then it's hard to make that connection. So I think that's my marketing brain is like, hey, if we show more of what we can do, or we show more beautiful landscapes, like people will take care of it better and want to steward it, hopefully, because they realize it is ours, or it's it's Mother Nature's, it's our planet. So I love that. Tell me, was there any powerful moment during, because you covered that for a long time, I feel like that's your, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's like your magnum opus, or at least the thing that people know you the most for. Was there a particular powerful experience or just feeling that you had photographing the pandas, or any time where it felt different maybe to you, or is that every time?
Oh, well, I mean, they're kind of this magical creature. I think what people don't realize is how elusive they are. We used to see them as like, a cartoon, or, in the zoos, these little babies rolling around playing together. But the truth is, they remind me of rhinos in a lot of ways, because in the wild, they just want to be left alone. They are very solitary, quiet creatures who only come together once every year in the space of 24 to 72 hours to breed. That's it. Unless you see a mother with her cub. But in the wild, little cubs aren't rolling around playing together. they're very different. And I think that was the thing that surprised me, is just how, kind of magical and elusive and mysterious they are. They were like a little, mythical creature to me. And once I got to kind of spend time with them and see that, it was really, really special. And I mentioned rhinos, and they really do remind me of rhinos in their behavior, even in the way they sound. A little baby rhino and a little baby panda actually have the same little squeaky, high-pitched, kind of sort of squeal that they make that is just so precious. And I love kind of the parallels between both of those as species. They're both highly endangered, they're both elusive, and they're both, really, really mythical in a way, and we have to think about them in the same way. I've also kind of gone down the path of covering the panda very deeply, and the rhinos. And I've, the rhino, the northern white rhinos, for which there's only 2 of them alive on the planet today. They're very close to extinction. They have a lot of parallels in their stories and a lot of lessons that, I really think about as metaphors for all of us. And I am continuing to tell, I'm switching it from pandas now to rhinos, because rhinos, maybe they're a little, to me, they're as adorable as pandas, but I think for a lot of people, they're represented in very differently, because they've got this thick, rough skin and a horn, and they're not furry and cute, but they are just as important to our landscapes, and dangerously close to losing them in these landscapes. And when you remove these keystone species, you start to understand that everything falls apart, that we need every creature on this planet for a healthy ecosystem that has frankly, evolved over millions of years to create this magical, diverse world we live in. And so I keep I'm in a dark mood, but I feel like we need to talk about this. We need to understand that we are, I'm sure many of our audience knows that report that came out maybe a month or 2 ago saying that we are now in the 6th extinction. And what's so different about this event is that it's purely human driven. And I think all of us, not to scare people, but it's like, okay, what are we all going to do to understand that we're part of nature? I really got off on a tangent here, Adam, sorry, but it's like my main message is like, okay, yeah, the pandas are cute, but kind of let's bring it back to what are all of us going to do to realize that we are part of this natural world, and also that nature is incredibly resilient if we give it a chance. Like, that's what the pandas taught me. That if you, the Chinese are amazing in that they are one of the few countries that's actually reforesting and creating habitat right now. So it's one of the few countries where forest coverage is growing, and they're connecting existing corridors. And not that they don't have serious issues. They do, just like all of us. But I think habitat's the main thing we should all be really paying attention to.
Sure. No, I mean, it's super important. And I don't mind you going off on tangents. We welcome tangents here, because that's obviously super important. What do you think is kind of next, both for you and both for rhinos in particular, because I think that, kind of like you mentioned, the northern white rhino, that is, I'm trying to think, the best way I've seen it as a non-Nat Geo photographer is like that it's a marker, if you will. It's the kind of thing where the alarm goes off and we're like, oh my gosh, we only have 2 of this thing left, to the common person. What is next to hopefully help as far as photographers go, or storytelling for animals? Like, what's the next thing there that can help out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really, really important as storytellers, whether you're a photographer or whatever medium you use, to find stories that remind us of what I think it's very important to talk about the challenges, but I also feel like depressing people so that they don't care anymore doesn't do any good. We also now need to give people a way forward. Like, so what do we do? And I think as journalists and people telling these stories, we also have to find out, like, giving people solutions, like what are the answers? What do we do? Are there places where, people are coexisting? And I think that there are, and it's important to kind of seek out those stories and empower the communities. I mean, I personally think Indigenous communities living on these, last great landscapes that are still, intact, we need to keep that habitat intact and empower the communities so that they have a reason to keep them intact. But I mean, I guess this is not every photographer's issue, but I feel like if this is something you care about, finding the stories that give us a way forward are equally as important. And giving voice to, well, I don't like that line. I would say, like, let's amplify people's voices that are kind of on the front lines in these last great spaces. That's very important. And I don't know. I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but I feel like we still have this incredibly diverse planet, and it's not over. And I think that it's just sort of a moment where we all need to wake up and realize, like, okay, what are we going to do so that we're not committing the next generations to eternal poverty?
I love that. I think I appreciate you. I know it might seem like you're in a dark sense, but you just saying it's not over kind of gives me hope and gives me optimism. And yeah, I would encourage everybody to, listening, especially photographers in general, to find a passion project or a cause in general. And then two, at least for us in Mesa Photography, like, we give a percentage of our income to international causes, whether it is nature, wildlife, or Indigenous people. Like I said, we do a lot of work in East Africa as kind of our passion project. And it's, because we're fortunate, but we want to help the planet as a whole. And it's easy as Americans to, like, ignore what's happening. But like you said at the beginning, is our camera invites us to places where we get to see things the way they are. And
well, yeah, and I don't think it even has to be like Americans looking outwards. Like, there's a lot here. There's stories in our backyard that that really deserve, and thank you for the work you do too. And I just feel like, oh my goodness, there's a lot of work to be done right here in our own backyard. And
yeah.
And realizing that, the camera is powerful. It is this tool, and it can, create awareness and connect people. And it does not have to be just this tool that divides people, but also, like, I think our roles as, kind of the messenger has evolved quite a bit, and to realize that, yeah, you're there to share stories, but you can also continue to do more, and that we have, I mean, I feel like the citizen journalism is real, and it's like, okay, so what are you going to do now? Then just kind of, take the pictures and walk away. There's so much more that we can all be doing.
Totally. Amy, thank you so much for being on. I would love to talk more. We'll get you on another time too, and we'll have as much Amy as we possibly can.
No,
what?
I don't know how exciting this was, Adam, but thank you very much, and thanks for what you're doing as well.
No, I love it. I love it. Where can people go to find out more about you, and what do you have going on that people should know about upcoming?
Yeah, actually right now I'm doing a fundraiser for the elephant sanctuary I work with, and yeah, you can really, there's a kind of a sweepstakes right now where you could win a Nikon camera and a think tank bag and a print, and that is going on right now for Elephant Day, and that's all available on my website. I'm also doing a print drive, and if you just check out my website, there's just so much. I'm kind of on the road till November, working on lots of projects, and you can find me on social media on Instagram as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Amy.
Thanks, Adam. Take care.
Oh, what a cool episode. I absolutely love Amy. She is just so wise, and I just love her story. She is an incredible, incredible person who puts her money where her mouth is. Like, she puts her camera where her mouth is. Like, she is just an incredible photographer and person. So absolutely love her. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the episode. Definitely check out our live workshop. The link is in the show notes, or you can go to facebook.com/group/thebeardedtog. Thank you to our sponsors, Tave and Photo Booth Supply Co. Get your business right. Get your photo booths. Guys, thank you so much. I'll see you next week.